A guide to growing leeks. This root vegetable has a mild onion-like flavor and can be eaten both raw and cooked. Originating from the Mediterranean region, leeks are high in vitamin K and also have lots of other nutrients. They make a great addition to soups, stews, roasts, and quiches. Leek varieties. A quick note is that although hardy varieties can take up to 100 days to mature, they are able to withstand heavy freezes. American flag. This variety has blue-green leaves and is very hardy and cold-resistant. The large, thick stems will blanch to a clear white. Titan. An early type with dark green leaves and white stems. Arkansas. This variety has dark blue to green foliage and is tolerant to temperatures under the freezing point. Musselburgh. Another hardy variety with thick and relatively short stems. When growing long-season varieties, the seeds should be started indoors. The ideal soil temperature for leeks to germinate is between 50 to 75 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 to 24 degrees Celsius. Transplants can be started about 8 to 10 weeks before the last frost date, sowing in flats that are a ½ inch deep and a ¼ inch apart. Once the seedlings are 2 inches, 5 centimeters tall, either transplant them into containers or thin them in their current container. When directly sowing outside, seedlings can be planted a ½ inch deep, 1.3 centimeters, spaced 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters apart, in rows that are about 20 inches, 50 centimeters apart. Then, after the seedlings have sprouted, they can be thinned to 4 to 6 inches, 10 to 15.2 centimeters apart. Leeks grow best in soil with a pH between 6.0 and 6.8. Because of their shallow root system, leeks lose water fast, so they need consistent moisture to be at their best. Drought stress during their growth stage will lower their yields, which is something to avoid. Soil should then be moistened once a week with a depth of 18 inches, 46 centimeters. Hill the soil around leeks 2 to 3 times for blanching purposes. If only one big hilling is done when the plants are still young, it may cause their stems to rot, which is why 2 to 3 times works best. This process can be started when plants are roughly the size of a pencil. Another option is to place cardboard, like an old milk carton, around the plants. The deeper the transplants were set in the first place, the less they'll need hilling up around their stems. Weeds can also be a big problem for leeks, especially in their first 2 months of growth. That's because in this early stage, leeks grow very slowly and compete poorly. Cultivate shallowly and take care not to damage the plants. The great thing about leeks is that they can overwinter, just as long as the soil is heavily mulched and hilled up around the plants. Mulch leeks with grass clippings, wood chips, or straw to contain moisture in the soil and to control the growth of weeds. In wintertime, mulch will also protect leeks from temperatures that are too low. Before fertilizing, check what type is needed by using a soil kit. Then apply the appropriate fertilizer no deeper than 6 inches, 15.2 centimeters into the soil. As well, side dress with a nitrogen fertilizer, 21 to 0 to 0 in the leek's 3rd month of growth. To fertilize using compost, apply no more than 1 inch of well-composted organic matter for each 100 square feet, 9 meters squared, of crops. Transplant crops that have been started indoors when they are about 8 inches tall. After hardening off, set the transplants 4 to 8 inches deep, 10 to 20 centimeters, spacing them 4 to 6 inches, 10 to 15.2 centimeters apart, in rows that are 20 inches, 50 centimeters apart. Planting holes should be about 6 inches deep, and a dibber tool makes this task much easier. Place the transplants in the hole. Cover until the first leaf, then let water, either irrigation or rain, fill up the rest. Setting the transplants this deep into the soil reduces the need for hilling, which is a necessary step to blanch the plants. Carrots, celery, lettuce, scallions, spinach, onions, beets, and shallots are all great companions for leeks. Leeks will stunt the growth of beans and peas, so try to avoid planting them together. Raised beds. This is the ideal growing structure for growing leeks. Raised beds have good water drainage, which is important because it helps avoid overly wet soils and bacteria that may cause rotting diseases. These structures are also easy to access, and they prevent the disturbance of plants when they're being worked on. This decreases the risk of injuring the plants and makes for a much more comfortable gardening experience. Plus, because raised beds are elevated from the actual ground, soil will warm up faster so that planting can happen sooner. Containers. A great space-saving option to use, but these containers should be at least 8 to 10 inches, 20 to 25 centimeters in diameter, and have a volume of 2 to 3 gallons, 7.5 to 11.3 liters, to accommodate the whole plant. Containers are also more flexible to be moved around, which can help optimize the growing conditions of leek plants when it comes to sun exposure and watering. Containers will also need holes in the bottom for good drainage, which is essential since water-soaked soil can lead to disease infection. Open field. Before planting, check the soil for its fertilizer requirements and existing diseases first. As well, make sure that no other member of the allium family has grown in that planting spot for the past 3 to 4 years. Onion flies and onion maggots. They begin as larvae, maggots, in the soil over the winter. Then they will emerge as flies in the spring. Females typically lay their eggs at the base of a plant's stem, and cool, moist conditions will increase their chance of survival. The larvae will feed on the roots and stems of a plant, and the damage they cause can act as an entry point for soft rot bacteria. As well, this damage can stunt the growth of seedlings or make them wilt. If you try to pull up affected plants, often the plants will break at the soil line. Also, if an infestation happens while plants are forming bulbs, those bulbs will then be deformed and susceptible to storage rots after harvest. Here's what to do. Good sanitation is important, and all crop residue should be removed at the end of the season, since maggots will die without a food source. It's also important to remove any volunteer, wild onion and chive plants, as these can act as an infection source. Finally, floating row covers might provide some protection by preventing females from laying eggs around the crops. If there are noticeable symptoms from these pests, pull out all the plants and use what greens are salvageable. Then destroy the rest of the plant parts, since the flies that produce onion maggots can continue to lay eggs, causing problems for future crops. As well, it's important to practice crop rotation. One last option is to place yellow sticky cards around plants to attract and trap the adult onion flies. These are tiny, needle-thin insects that are black, brown, or light yellow in color. Thrips suck the juices of plants while also attacking the leaves and stems. Affected plants will have rough bumps, discolored speckles, or silvering on their leaves. Those leaves can then become distorted, twist, and fall off the plant. As well, thrips can spread many diseases from plant to plant. If the thrip infestation is severe enough, it can kill plants off entirely. Here's what to do. Lots of thrips can be repelled by sheets of aluminum foil that are spread between the rows of plants. Be sure to also remove weeds and debris from the garden bed after frost, and avoid planting next to onions, garlic, or cereals where large numbers of thrips can build up and then transfer onto other crops. Also, use reflective mulches early in the growing season to deter thrips. Spinosad and neem oil can also be used to spot treat heavily infested areas. Finally, release commercially available predators like minute pirate bugs, ladybugs, and lacewings, which are especially effective in greenhouses. For best results, make releases of these predator bugs after first knocking down severe thrips infestations with a spray from the garden hose. Finally, watering plants from above is another effective way to prevent a thrips infestation. Botrytis neck rot. This disease typically appears after harvest, during storage. The soft tissue of leeks will become water-soaked with a yellow discoloration. As a result, the bulb breaks down into a soft mass, and a gray mold will develop. Here's what to do. Practice crop rotation every 3 years, and make sure to plant crops with ample spacing, which is at least 1 inch apart after thinning. It's also important to destroy any remnants of the plants after harvest, and avoid injuring any crops while those crops are being harvested and stored. Fusarium basil rot. This fungus can infect plants at any stage of their growth, causing the curving and yellowing of leaves. Wilting of the plants might also happen, and the bulb tissue will be brown and watery when cut open. Here's what to do. Plant resistant varieties, practice crop rotation, and protect plants from injuries, either from insects, fertilizer, or from machines and tools. Onion white rot. A soil-borne fungus that can cause the yellowing and wilting of leaves above ground, while rotting the roots and invading the bulb beneath the soil. A white fluffy fungus will also appear at the base of the bulb, and later that white fungus becomes covered in small, round black growths. Here's what to do. Follow a 3 to 4 year rotation with allium crops, onions, garlic, chives, to help prevent onion white rot. Also, it's important to properly sanitize any onion debris, especially culled onions. Incorporate all onion debris into the soil immediately after harvest. No exposed culls should be present in the soil before the next round of crops are planted. It also helps to plant only high-quality seeds, while carefully inspecting transplants for signs of contamination. As well, avoid extra or late applications of nitrogen. Instead, it's best to use split nitrogen applications. Make sure to also manage any weeds, since that will improve air movement around the crops while allowing the tops to dry off faster. Purple blotch. Symptoms of this disease first appear as small tan spots on the leaves. Those lesions, which are usually surrounded by a ring of purple, eventually become sunken and will quickly expand up and down the leaf. If there are too many leaf lesions, they can cause the collapse of the entire top of the plant. Purple blotch favors warm and humid conditions, and it typically begins on the older leaves of a plant. The bulbs can also get infected by stem wounds. Here's what to do. Plant disease-free seeds in appropriate spacing to avoid excessive leaf wetness and to improve air circulation. As well, practice crop rotation and harvest in dry weather. Good drainage is also important, and it helps to avoid using excess doses of nitrogen fertilizers and to use fungicides frequently. Finally, avoid crop injuries and practice good field sanitation, like cleaning garden tools after working in a specific spot in the garden. Leeks are ready to eat once their stems are at least 1 inch, 2.5 centimeters in diameter. To harvest them, Gently twist and pull the stem out of the soil. Leeks can be frozen, pickled, canned, or dehydrated. To freeze leeks, prepare them properly before sticking them in the freezer. To do so, first blanch the trimmed leeks for about 2 to 3 minutes in boiling water, then towel dry and place them in freezer bags.